Welcome back to the deep dive. This is where we take your sources, all the research notes and deep thinking, and really pull out the essential insights you need.
That's right.
Today, we're diving into something quite fascinating. Siddha Digit Poses.
It's definitely a topic that can seem dense.
Yeah.
Anyone who's looked into, specialized hand positions, sometimes called mudras, well, you quickly hit these historical, cultural layers. Assumptions, really.
Yeah, those assumptions can cloud the picture.
But they really can.
And for you, the listener, trying to grasp the fundamentals, the first hurdle is often just categorization. Is it science?
Yeah.
Philosophy? Is it purely religious?
Where does it fit?
Exactly. And the source material we've got for this deep dive, it's like a scalpel. It's designed to cut through all that noise and give one specific, focused answer.
Our mission today is pretty sharp, actually. We're focused on extracting the answer about any alleged religious or, well, spiritual links to these poses. The material presents a really singular, strong argument. It completely reframes how you might think about where this practice even comes from.
And that reframing is so important because, we talk about ancient practices and there's this common misconception, isn't there?
Mm-hmm.
People often assume that because certain faiths, certain traditions have used these finger positions a lot, you see them everywhere in art, iconography, temples.
Right, they're visually prominent in certain contexts.
That those faiths must sort of own the practice, that it originated with them.
And look, that's an understandable jump to make. If you just look historically, you see these poses being integrated into religious doctrines over, well, centuries.
Sure.
So it leads directly to that question we're tackling. There's one probably in the back of your mind right now.
Yeah.
Are Siddha Digit poses fundamentally religious? Are they tied to one specific faith? Hinduism, Buddhism, you name it.
Okay, let's really unpack that. We've set up the common view, the potential misconception. Now, based strictly on the documents we analyzed, what is the source's direct, emphatic answer? Is this practice religious?
The source is incredibly direct on this. The answer, stated very clearly, unequivocally, is no.
Oh, flat out.
Flat out no. These poses are not, in their foundational nature, religious or sectarian. The authors, they draw a really sharp line. They insist that viewing them through a religious lens fundamentally misunderstands their biological origin.
Wow. Okay, that's a huge shortcut for anyone trying to navigate this. It just sort of strips away all that accumulated ritual and doctrine.
It does.
But okay, if the practice doesn't start in scripture or a temple or a sacred text, then where does the source material say it begins? What's the starting point?
And this is where the whole argument pivots. It shifts from, history class right into biology class. This is where it gets genuinely interesting, I think. It provides that real aha moment. The sources argue the connection, the performance of these poses, it begins not just before any cultural teaching, but, and this is the surprising part, before physical birth.
Hold on. Let's just pause there for a second. That completely changes the game. You're saying the argument for universality starts while a person is still in the womb.
Yes, that is the core piece of evidence they present. The sources explicitly highlight that the human body starts performing certain Siddha Digit poses while still in the fetal stage.
Wow.
This establishes the practice as a natural physiological thing, not something learned, not cultural. So you, the listener, you actually began doing these specialized poses before you were even born, just as part of your development as a human.
That's actually astonishing when you think about it. We're talking about a behavior that comes before language, before culture, even before breathing air.
Right.
It literally makes the practice part of the human operating system right from the start.
Exactly. And the evidence doesn't stop there. It continues after birth. There's an observation, something basically every parent or caregiver has seen, probably without realizing its significance.
Okay.
After a child is born, it naturally makes a very specific pose with its hand. The sources call this the primitive Siddha Digit pose.
The primitive pose. Can you maybe describe that a bit more? Someone's trying to picture this, connect it to something they've seen. What does it look like?
Yeah, absolutely. The source points right to that classic image, that involuntary thing newborns do. The tightly clenched fist.
Oh, right.
Where the fingers curl right in and often the thumb gets tucked tightly inside. That specific formation, that automatic neurological response, that's what they cite as the primitive pose.
I see.
It's just an observable physical fact of being an infant. Doesn't matter where the child is born or who the parents are.
So what's the big takeaway here? The implication seems massive. It means this practice doesn't start in a classroom or through teaching. It starts as just an inherent natural part of being human from the absolute beginning of life. So if you're human, you're basically biologically wired for this,
That's the argument.
which completely strips away any need for a religious starting point or prerequisite.
Precisely. It flips that whole argument about religious ownership completely on its head.
Right.
If every single human fetus and infant does this instinctively, then no single religion can claim to own it. They might claim ownership over how it's applied, maybe, or interpreted, but the foundation, that remains universal, according to these sources.
That leads us perfectly into the source's argument about true, sociological universality. The material is emphatic that this practice is for all human beings, which means they have to address all the ways humans divide themselves up, right?
They do, and the documents are actually very good at anticipating that kind of skepticism. They really try to shut down those historical biases.
How so?
They make a specific point of detailing the full range, the full scope of human diversity that performs these poses, whether they know it or not.
Knowingly or unknowingly. Interesting.
Yeah. The material states very clearly it's performed regardless of religion, regardless of race, regardless of caste, regardless of any other kind of diversity or distinction you could think of that might separate people.
That breadth is really crucial, isn't it? Especially when you're talking about things often tied to specific regions or belief systems.
Definitely.
But let me just push back a little here, play devil's advocate like a listener might. That sounds definitive, sure, but isn't it true that lots of things, even basic physiological things, get sort of co-opted by religions, ritualized, rebranded to fit a specific narrative?
That's a fair point.
How does the source deal with that? The fact that these do appear prominently in, say, Hindu or Buddhist art and practice, how do they reconcile the claim of universality with that historical reality?
That's a really important distinction they make. The sources differentiate between the natural mechanism, the thing the body just does, and the cultural framework that might get built around it later. The research insists that the universal biological fact, those prenatal poses, the primitive pose in infants, that's the non-sectarian origin, full stop.
Right.
Any religion that then adopts these poses, the argument goes, does so because they're effective tools, not because the tools themselves belong to the doctrine. They might formalize them, give them specific names, layer on complex spiritual meanings.
But the underlying mechanism is still just human, universal.
Exactly. The base mechanism remains universally human property, so to speak.
So the source material is essentially arguing that religions might take this existing piece of biological hardware and install their own software on top.
That's actually a really good analogy, yeah.
But the hardware itself, the poses, belongs to everyone.
That captures the core argument perfectly. The final conclusion presented in the source material is really quite powerful, because this practice is established as natural, pre-linguistic, pre-cultural, something every human does from the very start. The practice is explicitly stated to be universal. The whole point seems to be clearing up those lingering doubts, answering that common question about religious ties. It's meant for every single person born as a human being.
This has been incredibly clarifying, actually. A real deep dive. So the core takeaway for you, listening, is this. Siddha Digit Poses fundamentally are non-religious and universal. And the proof isn't in ancient texts, primarily, but in observable human experience starting before birth, continuing in infancy. That's a powerful shift in perspective.
It really is. And what's fascinating, as we touched on briefly, is that subtle distinction the sources make.
Yes.
When they say every human performs these poses either knowingly or unknowingly.
Right. The difference between the baby instinctively clenching its fist and an adult maybe consciously, intentionally holding a specific pose for a reason.
Exactly that. So, if every human does these poses unknowingly, naturally, from the very beginning, well, the provocative question the sources leave you with is this. What is the significance then? What's the specific value in moving from that unknowing natural execution to a knowing, conscious, intentional practice?
Yeah.
What profound change might happen when you deliberately apply knowledge and intent to something your body already does instinctively?
That distinction, the difference between being sort of programmed to do it and choosing to do it, that really does set up a fantastic path for exploring the practice itself further, doesn't it?
It certainly invites more questions.
Well, a huge thank you for joining us for this deep dive into the source material on the universality of Siddha Digit Poses. We genuinely hope this has equipped you with the facts to navigate this topic with a bit more confidence.
Absolutely. Until next time, keep digging into your sources, keep thinking about those connections.
We'll see you soon.